So in this video, we're going to be working with solving quadratic equations. We're going to use the square root, the property of the square root, and factoring, right? So for example, on this one, I want to solve b squared equals 81. So on this case, I'm going to take the square root on both sides. So b equals 2 plus or minus 9. Remember, when we're solving an equation, I'm just looking for a number that I can substitute for that b and equals 81. So that means that positive 9 square equals 81, but negative 9 square is also positive 81. So my solution is plus or minus 9. Next one. My first step here is that I'm going to divide by 3. So that means that k squared equals 100. And then I'm going to take the square root on both sides, so k equals plus or minus 10. Next one, the first step is that I'm going to subtract minus 4 on both sides. So x squared equals 63. Now I'm going to take the square root on both sides, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 63. Well, 63 is the same as 9 times 7. It's the same as 21 times 7. And 63 times 1, but I'm not going to use that one. So I'm going to use this one. Why? Because one of those numbers has a perfect square root, that is 9. So equals to plus or minus the square root of 9 times 7. Okay? And the square root of 9 is 3 square root of 7. That means that x equals 3 square root of 7. So again, I'm going to subtract first minus 4. So 9x squared equals 27. Now I'm going to divide by 9. So x squared equals 3. And I'm going to take the square root on both sides. So x equals plus or minus square root of 3. And that one I cannot simplify because it's just a prime number. So it's plus or minus square root of 3. Okay, now, when I solve an equation, my first step is to see if I have a common factor. So for example, in this one, I have a common factor of r. So I have r minus times r minus 3 equals 0, right? So now I'm going to find the value of r. Then when I multiply r times r minus 3 equals 0. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to equal to 0 each one. So r equals 0 or r minus 3 equals 0, right? So I'm going to add 3 on both sides. That means that r equals positive 3. So my solution here are r equals 0 and r equals 3. So the next one, I'm going to start to see if I can factor. So I'm looking for two numbers that you can multiply and give you 48. And you subtract and give you 2. So that's a plus 8 times a minus 6 equals 0. Equals 0. Right? Okay, two numbers here multiply and give you 48. You know that they have to be different signs because it's negative. But when you add them up, they're positive, so that means that it's 8 times 6. Now, the property of 0, right, says that if I have a times b equals 0, that means that a equals 0 or that b equals 0, right? So that means that in this case, I'm going to find where a plus 8 equals 0 or where a minus 6 equals 0. So minus 8, so a equals negative 8 plus 6, so a equals 6. So those are my two solutions. I'm solving a quadratic equation where I only have the quadratic term, so the variable square, and I only have the linear term, the constant term, sorry, the one without variable. I can move everything to this opposite side, so m squared equals 64. Now I'm going to just take the square root, so m equals plus or minus 8. That's it. The next one, if I have the two terms with variable, so the variable square and the linear term with the just the variable, that means that I need to move everything to the same side of the equation. So b squared plus 9b plus 8 equals 0. And now I'm just going to factor. So two numbers here multiply and give you 8, and you add and give you 9 are 1 and 8. So again, I'm going to split this b plus 8 equals 0, or b plus 1 equals 0, so minus 8, so b equals negative 8, minus 1, b equals negative 1. Now again, I'm going to move that, minus 48p plus 140 equals 0. Now, my first step is I'm going to check if I have a common factor. So here my common factor is 4, so that means that I can divide everything by 4. So I can divide everything by 4. So p squared minus 12p plus 35 equals 0. Now we're going to factor this, right? So two numbers they multiply give you 35, and you add and give you 12. They are positive 7 and positive 5, or sorry. So they are negative 7 and negative 5. So that means that p minus 7 equals 0. 7 on both sides. So that means that p equals 7, or p minus 5 equals 0. So p, so plus 5 on both sides. So that means that p equals 5. Okay, so next one. First of all, I'm going to subtract the x. Again, we want to have, if we have the quadratic term, we have the linear term, we need to have everything on the same side of the equation. So minus x minus 42 equals 0. So this factor. So again, two numbers they multiply and give you 42, and you subtract, give you 1, or negative 1 are negative 7 and positive 6. So x minus 7 equals 0, or x plus 6 equals 0. So plus 7, x equals 7, minus 6, x equals negative 6. Okay, so the next one, I'm gonna add 2n on both sides, so plus 2n. So 4n squared minus 28n equals negative 40, and now I'm gonna add 40 on both sides. So 4n minus 28 and plus 40 equals 0. Now I'm going to divide everything by 4. Alright, because 4 is my common factor, so n squared minus 7n plus 10 equals 0. So n minus 5 and minus 2 equals 0. So n minus 5 equals 0 plus 5 n equals 5, or n minus 2 equals 0 plus 2 n equals 2. So the next one, first I'm going to add 2x squared. So 2x squared, so 2x squared, so I have x squared minus 3x minus 28 equals 0. So, this is x minus 7, x plus 4. So x minus 7 equals 0. Plus 7, x equals 7. X plus 4 equals 0, so minus 4. X equals negative 4.